Alarms shriek inside the cockpit. Too low, pull up. Visibility is falling fast, and the aircraft descends toward a runway the pilots can't see. They are severely off course. Instead of aligning with the runway, the plane flies dangerously low, accelerating directly toward the air traffic control tower. Inside the tower, 8 controllers scramble for cover, bracing for an impact from an aircraft that should have been miles away. This was a fully functional commercial airliner. It had the latest navigation equipment and 2 pilots at the controls, yet it was targeting the airport's own tower instead of the tarmac. Landing at Kathmandu is a specialized operation. The city is squeezed into a narrow valley, surrounded on all sides by the Himalayan mountains. To handle this terrain, 25-year-old First Officer Prithula Rashid is flying the approach under the supervision of 52-year-old Instructor Captain Abid Sultan, a veteran with over 22 years of experience. Safety in these moments depends on the sterile cockpit rule. This protocol legally requires pilots to stop all non-essential conversation during critical phases like takeoff and landing. While the mountains and fog posed a constant threat, the safety of the 71 people on board was actually being compromised by a sequence of events unfolding entirely within the cockpit. During the flight, Captain Sultan begins to unravel. He berates ground operations over the radio. He weeps over a grievance with a former trainee, openly smoking a cigarette at the controls. This is a visualization of the authority gradient. It represents the power dynamic between a senior instructor and a junior officer. In this cockpit, the imbalance is extreme. First Officer Rashid recognizes that her captain is no longer fit to fly, but because of his seniority and her lack of experience, she remains silent, hoping the flight ends quickly. The rigid structure of command means the captain's errors go entirely unchallenged. Without a second pilot to act as a check, his mental state is now the primary factor directing the aircraft. Distracted by his own emotional state, the captain skips the approach briefing. He misplaces his navigation charts and relies entirely on memory to navigate one of the world's most difficult mountain approaches. This diagram shows the intended path. The crew programmed a circular holding pattern into the computer at waypoint Gros. When cleared to fly directly to the runway, they forget to delete that hold. Reaching Gros, the computer automatically banks left, entering the loop. The autopilot pulls the aircraft away from the airport. By the time the crew realizes the computer is taking them off course, they are already out of position. This undeleted input was the moment the internal chaos in the cockpit manifested as a physical deviation from the flight path. To correct their course, the captain manually sets a heading of 27 degrees, but as this radar map shows, he fails to account for a strong crosswind. These arrows represent the wind pushing the plane even further away from the intended 22-degree path. The wind drift pushes the plane to the east of the airport. Surrounded by clouds and without visual contact with the ground, the pilots have no idea they are drifting into a dangerous position. During the landing checklist, the captain states the landing gear is down, but he never actually checks the handle. A gear unsafe alarm immediately fills the cockpit with a blaring siren. When the first officer points out the warning, the captain tells her to simply ignore it. By disregarding the navigation data and silencing the safety alarms, the crew has effectively cut themselves off from the plane's reality. This map shows the result. The plane makes erratic, high-angle turns directly over the terminal. It passes dangerously close to another flight, forcing controllers to scramble to keep the 2 aircraft from colliding. The captain finally spots the runway, but he is at the wrong end. In a desperate attempt to save the landing, he forces the plane into a steep, high-speed dive toward the tarmac. They touch down nearly 2 kilometers past the start of the runway. The plane skids off the tarmac, crashes through the airport's perimeter fence, and breaks apart in a nearby field. 51 people died in the crash. It was the end of a long chain of errors, a sequence that began with the failure to maintain professional standards and ended with a complete breakdown of cockpit safety. Investigators concluded that Captain Sultan was in the middle of an unmanaged psychiatric crisis. He had a long history of depression, yet he was still in command of a commercial flight. The aviation industry creates a difficult choice for pilots. Seeking mental health treatment often means losing their medical certification, which effectively ends their ability to earn a living. Flight 211 is one of several tragedies linked to this systemic issue. When pilots feel forced to hide their struggles, the safety systems designed to protect the passengers are bypassed. True aviation safety isn't just about better engines or more computers. It requires an environment where pilots can be honest about their mental health without fearing for their careers. Until that happens, every flight remains vulnerable to the same human factors that brought down Flight 211.